This video follows the context video and continues from the third video. Most people count only 6 speakers in the poetic 39 chapters of the book of Job, chapters 3 through 41. A careful examination proves this wrong. There are actually 7. Most people, even some commentators, miss the very first speaker. The obvious 6 speakers are Job, the 3 friends, the young man Elihu, and God. The missing speaker is so stealthy that he is seldom, if ever, counted or even noticed. He is the stealthy speaker that comes and speaks to Eliphaz before Eliphaz's first speech. Since he came to Eliphaz in the night before Job begins to speak, but after Job had been sitting on the ash heap for 7 days, and before the 3 friends respond to what Job says, this makes him effectively the first speaker to speak in the poetic chapters. Eliphaz will speak of this spirit that came to him, but only after Job has spoken in chapter 3. Job will curse the day of his birth and call upon those who can rouse a Leviathan, a force for anti-creation, to do the same. Eliphaz then begins speaking in chapter 4. Eliphaz is the most senior and respected man among this group. He begins by speaking of a spirit that had come to him in the night. He introduces the spirit saying, "Now a thing was brought to me stealthily." This is a textual warning sign. Job will later say, "The murderer rises in the dark, that he may kill the poor and the needy, and in the night he is as a thief." Eliphaz continues his description. "Fear came upon me and trembling, which made all of my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice." Eliphaz's description is like the beginning of a distressing horror novel. The appearance of this spirit gliding past Eliphaz's face, making all of Eliphaz's bones shake, filled him with dread and trembling. Who is the spirit? Could the spirit be a holy angel from God, filling Eliphaz with terror? Actually, the answer at first glance is maybe. Later in the book of Job, the young Elihu will say, "For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the men, then he opens the ears of men and terrifies them with warnings, that he may turn man aside from his purpose and keep him from pride." Could this dread that Eliphaz experienced actually be from God? Simply a holy messenger from God, terrifying Eliphaz, just as young Elihu will say God sometimes does to men? The answer lies in the Spirit's message. Shall mortal man be just before God? Shall a man be pure before his Maker? Behold, he puts no trust in his servants, and his angels he charges with folly. How much less them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth. They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. If their 10 cord is plucked up within them, do they not die, even without wisdom? Where is the warning in this message to Eliphaz? What deed is this spirit trying to turn Eliphaz from? The spirit's message is not a warning. It's a judgment of man. When the focus of the reader was on suffering and evil, this judgment was quickly passed over. It did not seem to pertain to the question of suffering and evil. It seemed just a pious expression, similar to someone saying no one can compare to God. When the centrality of the question, what is man, is recognized, its light shines upon Eliphaz's words, highlighting the importance of the message. It is very important, for this is a response to the central question, what is man? But would a holy messenger from God deliver such a message after hearing God call his servant Job a blameless and upright man who feared God and avoided evil? This message contradicts the Lord's judgment. Imagine if this had been said at the heavenly assembly, just after the Lord described Job, his servant, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. It would clearly be recognized for what it was, a contradiction of the Lord's word. Would a holy, faithful angel, a servant of God, even consider speaking such a contradiction after the Lord had said Job was blameless and upright? On the other hand, there are spirits who feel free to contradict the Lord's judgment to his face and to terrorize men with their venomous message. These messengers are unholy spirits, one whom God charges with error and in whom he puts no trust. This vitriolic message to Eliphaz about man is just a continuation of Hasatan's contradiction of the Lord's judgment of Job. Hasatan had said that Job, or any man, is at best a mercenary who will reveal his true nature if God stops paying him. If God stops paying Job or any man, that man will curse God to his face. Hereafter, this unholy spirit will be referred to as the spirit of contradiction. This spirit is the lynchpin that connects Hasatan's objection to God's judgment of Job in the first 2 prose chapters to the rest of the 39 chapters in the book of Job. There are a number of signs in Eliphaz's first discourse pointing to the true identity of the unclean spirit of contradiction. The spirit of contradiction is Hasatan. Besides the stealthy sign mentioned earlier, the spirit of contradiction's message to Eliphaz begins with a question. Can mortal man be righteous before God? In Scripture, one of the devil's tells is he begins every temptation with a question. When the serpent tempted the woman in the Garden of Eden, he began, "Did God really say?" In the New Testament, the devil's temptations of Jesus Christ began with, "If you are the Son of God." Now, at this point in the book, the beginning of the 3 friends' discourses, Hasatan, the spirit of contradiction, begins his successful temptation and influence of Eliphaz with the question, shall mortal man be just before God? There are more signs supporting this identification of the spirit of contradiction with Hasatan that are described in the commentary and in its appendices. Many have failed to recognize the spirit of contradiction's dreadful judgment of man and pass over it without critical analysis because they have been shackled by the preconception that the central question or issue of the book was suffering and evil. Since the description of man is not part of their central question, the Spirit's statement was viewed as a pietist's expression that in effect praises God, as if saying, no one is as great as God, a statement to which all the faithful would agree. But is it necessary to speak of the glory of God by accusing man? This is the question for the next video. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his light shine upon you, for who is like God?